In 2007, a 3-year-old British girl on a trip to Portugal with her family disappeared in the middle of the night, while her 2 siblings were fast asleep in the hotel. This is the case of Madeleine McCann. This is Misinformation podcast, where we cover missing cases and uncover the truth. Madeleine, along with her 2-year-old twin siblings, were all tucked in at 9 p.m. Jerry McCann went to check on them and saw that they were okay. After about an hour, Kate went to check on her daughter, and she was gone. Many residents at the resort volunteered to search around Praia da Luz, but came up empty-handed, and leads on the matter produced no results. Police even started to speculate Madeleine's parents as suspects, with no hard proof or direction to where Madeleine had gone. The search for Madeleine continued for 5 months as the international press became more involved in the search for Madeleine. In recent years, Madeleine's case has resurfaced on social media, with reports of a girl named Julia Van Delt claiming to be the missing girl. Joining us today, we have Margaret to tell us more on the matter. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me today.
Okay, so let's just get down to the details. Who exactly is Julia, and what is her connection to Madeleine?
Well, Julia is a girl that resurfaced on social media looking for a bit of information about her past, and so this was an opportunity for Julia to figure out if she was Madeleine McCann.
And how did she surface on social media and news sources?
She came across Madeleine's case and found out that she had similarities with her through comparing limited photos from her own past and Madeleine's past as well. When she began to suspect she was Madeleine, using the power of social media, she was able to gather a greater audience on the matter and then get more people to be able to support her claim.
So then, of all the missing children cases, why did she think she was Madeleine?
Julia doesn't remember much of her childhood from prior because of previous trauma with living with a pedophile that she believed was also in connection to Madeleine's case. And since she saw sketches of Madeleine's kidnapper and she assumed that the kidnapper looked similar to her then father, she felt that she was in connection with the case. With her traction on social media, she was able to get support from this private investigator called Dr. Fia Johnson. So Dr. Fia Johnson was initially a private investigator within Madeleine's case in 2007. When she resurfaced, she had said that she had a psychic vision that Madeleine was still alive and well. And so when it surfaced about Julia Van Delt, she felt that she was the real Madeleine McCann.
How do we verify if Julia is Madeleine?
So Dr. Johnson initially was one of the first people to verify if she was Madeleine. She said that she had the same freckle on her eye, just the same way as Madeleine had when she was young. Madeleine was kidnapped at 3 years old in 2007, and Julia resurfaced this year. She resurfaced as she was 21 years old, but Madeleine, of course, is 17 years old. So that was also an inhibiting factor to figure out if she was actually Madeleine.
So after all of this traction that she gained on social media and revealing that she's actually not Madeleine, how was it affecting her correctly?
So when Julia took to social media to post about potentially being Madeleine McCann, she ended up gathering 31,000 followers in a couple of days and later 1 million followers by around February 21st of this year. Most people did not believe that she was Madeleine McCann, even though she was posting photos verifying the similarities between Julia and Madeleine. She would get a lot of hate mail. The public was scrutinizing her search for her truth.
Okay. Thank you so much, Margaret, for joining us today, and to our listeners as well. But stay tuned because we have our next segment with our following cast members, Pranjali and Anushka, that will cover the dangers of fake news and how we can tackle it.
Today, me and Pranjali are going to discuss the implications of misinformation, identity theft, fake news in relation to this story.
How social media sort of plays into it and how the internet bloats the whole issue is what I think is very central to the theme that we'll be exploring today.
I think one of our course readings did cover how media literacy and being informed about the credibility of sources is one way that people can detect misinformation on online sources. I think with this story in particular, there were so many outlets, there were so many discussions. I mean, there was a whole Netflix series dedicated about the story of Madeleine McCann that I feel like Julia was genuinely confused instead of her intentions being very malicious. So it comes to show that misinformation and fake news stories can take us to an extent where people can actually be confused about reality and cannot decipher what fiction is from what is the objective truth.
Absolutely, yes. Because one part of the phenomena that we call fake news in itself which is in itself very broad, because it encompasses a lot of things, which is misinformation, which is the information that is misled intentionally. Then there is disinformation. Then there is malinformation. This is somehow also related to the dearth of information, like for example in Madeleine's and Julia's case.
I think that's very difficult for like social media users to do because we are exposed to so much information online that we don't really have reflection time, which is time to really give critique or be, suspicious of like news stories online because they come so fast. And in today's like digital journalism age, it's very easy to get clickbaited by news. And I feel like this situation or the news story was so interesting that it's very easy for users to just like be immersed in what Madeleine McCann's story was instead of being critical about, their perspective and her reality. If the source has a reputation of like spewing disinformation because they probably have like an agenda or something, then the social media user should usually be aware that, this news source may probably not be a credible one.
They have to do the fact checking themselves. It's very important to keep in mind that these institutions, like journalism, always has its flaws. It had in the past, it will still continue to have in the future as we navigate through these digital spaces, locked in that kind of echo chamber that you just view and consume the same kind of news. You have your own confirmation bias happening at the same time.
And I feel like the biggest takeaway from this is that social media is powerful. Misinformation is a problem that cannot be fixed, but it should be regulated because it will always exist. Stay tuned for the
Stay tuned
for the second episode.
Stay tuned on the misinformation